Okay, so do I need a license to sell baked goods online? And can I sell homemade baked goods on platforms like Etsy from my home? Well, yes and no. And I'm going to dive into specifically what a lot of people are getting misled into thinking they can do from their home. I'm all up for entrepreneurship and I'm all up for food entrepreneurs starting from home. But there is unfortunately federal laws that are in place for interstate shipping of food products, and you can't necessarily do that on platforms like Etsy. Well, at least legally, you can't. I'm going to break down specifically what I'm talking about here because this is a question that a lot of people get confused about. And many states, if actually all of them, don't allow what's known as interstate sales. This is actually when you begin to ship a product over state lines into another state directly from your home and not from a commercial setting, such as like a commercially licensed business or food manufacturing facility or commercial kitchen. So, what do you need to know about the cottage food laws? And do you need that license to sell baked goods online? So, the answer is yes. You need to have licenses, business licenses. You need to have local licenses and even health department permits to sell baked goods online legally. Reason being is that you're going to be doing it from a commercial facility. And that means that you have to be inspected and you have to follow local and state laws. So, cottage food laws. Okay, so how do they play a significant role in determining how you can actually sell homemade baked goods, especially on platforms like Etsy? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Damien, I see there's thousands of sellers on Etsy who sell food products, and I know that they're not all working from commercial kitchens. Well, you're right. They do. But guess what? Etsy doesn't have any liability because you agree to Etsy's terms of use when you actually go on their platform, and you need to ensure that you're following local and state guidelines. And doing it from home, technically, state cottage food laws don't cover that. Okay, so these laws are designed to allow individuals to prepare and sell certain types of foods made in their home kitchens with fewer regulatory hurdles and, of course, commercial food producers face normally. Okay, so however, they do come with specific restrictions, yes, and they have requirements that you need to be aware of. So, understanding cottage food laws, let's touch on this really quick. Number one, the purpose of cottage food laws. Now, it's actually there to support small businesses. They actually enable small scale entrepreneurs like yourself to start food businesses with lower overhead costs. Okay. Now, also safety regulations. They actually ensure that the production of food items meet basic safety standards to protect public health. Now, variability by location. Now, that varies by state and, of course, the cities and counties because state and local are different. Okay. In the United States, cottage food laws may vary significantly from state to state as they do, and sometimes even between local jurisdictions. So even cities and counties can add on to ordinances or laws within their own area as well. So the key aspects affecting online sales. Now, the types of foods that you're allowed, non-potentially hazardous foods. Typically, online foods that are basically low risk for foodborne illnesses are permitted. Now, this often includes things like baked goods, right? This is what we're talking about, breads and cookies, cakes, without any type of cream fillings or something that would require refrigeration. Prohibited items would be like foods requiring temperature control, like refrigeration, like let's say cheesecakes or meat pies. Okay, those are usually not allowed under cottage food laws. But more specifically, this video was specifically about the sales channels, the places where you can actually distribute the product. So direct sales only in almost every single state. Many cottage food laws permit sales only through direct in-person transactions. Now, this includes farmers markets, roadside stands, or even community events. Now, limitations about online sales. So some cities and counties explicitly prohibit selling cottage foods online or through a third-party platform, let's say like Etsy, okay? The shipping restrictions. Now, even if online sales are permitted, and believe it or not, there's a handful of states that do allow online sales, but here's the thing about the law. Shipping products may not be allowed specifically over state lines, okay? Or has to be within the state. So, like for instance, Florida. Florida does allow online sales, but you cannot ship it over state lines. You can't ship that product over state lines. It can't go into Georgia or other places because then it's considered interstate sales, and that falls under federal regulations, okay? So that brings us to like the geographical locations limitations about this, okay? So in state sales, this means sales are often restricted to within the state where the food was produced. Interstate commerce, shipping across the state lines, introduces federal regulations, and it may not align with cottage food laws, meaning that you have to be in some type of commercial facility. Also, there's additional things like annual sales caps. So there's revenue limits too, of course. There may be maximum amount that you can actually earn from home during cottage food businesses that you can do. You can undo that by going into a commercial facility where it's unlimited. Okay. Now, labeling requirements too also come into play as well, but we'll touch a little bit more specifically about the shipping of foods. So if you're actually at home and you have a storefront on Etsy and you're selling baked goods and stuff, you run the risk of getting into trouble from also a federal level too, because you're shipping products over state lines. So if there was a handful of people who actually complained about your food products and you're just doing it as a side hustle on Etsy or even eBay or anywhere for that matter, that's where it becomes a problem. And if you don't have any business license, if you're not incorporated as an LLC to protect you legally, the liability falls on you personally. It has nothing to do with your so-called business because you're not a legitimate business. You're not an LLC. Cottage food laws do not protect you from a legal perspective. If someone sues you, you could lose your house, you could lose your car, you could lose many things that you have because you don't have an LLC or you don't have insurance. So if somebody asks you, hey, have you thought about selling stuff online from home with the food product, specifically baked goods, and having a license to do that? Well, I would say you could do it, but don't start on platforms where you have to ship it over state lines. You could fall into some serious trouble. So this is something just to clarify, to understand. Do I need a license to sell baked goods online? Yes. The answer would that be good? Yes, because you would be in a commercial facility, a commercial kitchen, or some type of facility like that. Okay. From home, under cottage food laws, you don't need most states don't actually require licenses or permits. There's obviously every state's different, but the vast majority of them don't need that. You can do it and you would only be able to distribute it locally. So I hope that clarifies some of the misconceptions that you may have about selling on Etsy. It is technically legal to sell it locally from your home, but on Etsy, it's illegal. It's not something that's allowed. So the idea is that, you know what, you don't want to take that risk because the consequences could be pretty dramatic if somebody were to get sick, somebody sued you, or if somebody found out and local health department found out. And it can become some federal thing too, because the laws actually dictate that the FDA regulates interstate commerce for food products. So if this was helpful, let me know. Give me a big thumbs up. If you have questions about this or comments, let me know down in the section below. I'll see you in our next video.